Hi, I'm Dana Nye, and we're in Sydney for IMATS 2015. I'd like you to meet Eliza Campagna. She's an old friend of ours. You'll see her makeup tutorials on the Ben Nye YouTube channel, and they are really great.
Well, thank you.
Well, you've designed a very inventive makeup today. We'll see it all come together. And this is Marionette Madness. Eliza is a Sydney-based hair and makeup artist with credits that include The Morning Show, Sunrise, Late Sunrise. Her film credits include Wolverine, Unbroken, The Great Gatsby, Mad Max, and The Gods of Egypt. You've been very busy with your career. I
have been busy. I've been very lucky that I've had some wonderful people give me some amazing opportunities.
Well, we're lucky to have you here today, that's for sure. And I'd also like you to meet Liz Tagla, who's been with us from the very beginning here in Sydney. And our model is Michaela Varanov. So watch and learn as you see this very inventive makeup come together.
I'm using the Pro Color today, which I love. It's a new airbrush Ben Nye product. This is the Beauty Series, and I have these little nasal filters because we're going to be airbrushing around the face and the body. And whilst it is water-based, so there's no reason why you can't have no filters in, I just like to be extra safe. So you get these from spray tan companies. These are a spray tan thing. Because Michaela's got this beautiful tan, I'm going in and lightening her because I want her to have a really sort of pale porcelain complexion, but I don't want to make her grey, so that's why I'm going in with a little bit more of a yellow tone to start with. As you can see, just paling her right down. So I put just a couple of drops in, and I do about 2, maybe 3 squirts of the final seal. Just mix that up with my brush, and this way I get a really nice light translucent consistency. I really like that it's a bit thicker and that I can water it down to what I want, because sometimes I might want it thicker, I might want it thinner, and I get to control that. So I prefer a thicker mixture with these. And I just always have a little powder brush on me, so if my gun spurts a little bit, sometimes these guns have a tendency to splatter a little bit. If they get a slightly clogged, then this just blends that away, and it blends away really nicely. So I'm holding it quite far away because I just want a nice all over evenness, and you can see that little bit of splatter. You just quick tap and it's gone. Okay, so I've just gone in with a yellow foundation. Now I'm going in with more of a pink tone just to make that skin look a little bit more porcelain-like. And I'm just doing that on the highlights. I'm about, 10 centimeters away now. And you don't want to go too close because it will get too thick and wet. This particular foundation I'm not thinning out. This is still the Beauty Series. I don't know what this color this is. Porcelain. I'm just going back in with some of that yellow just to even it out. So now what I'm doing is I'm going to get some of this white, and I'm just going to go along where the marionette joins are for the ball joints, and I'm just going to highlight those. So what I'll do is the way I like to colour is put in all my highlights first, and then the very last thing that I'll do is put in the darker line and then blend that out. And that way on the I'll have a nice hard edge. That's the last thing I do because I won't have any overspray, and that will give me the depth so that it will look three-dimensional. The line will look three-dimensional, not just like a line that's been drawn on. I find that with this series, some of them are thicker than others, which is good for me. The white is a little bit thicker, so I do tend to thin that one out a lot. And then I just adjust my air gun accordingly. And you can see that suggestion of where the joints are going to be. And you know, everything with airbrushing, it's all about the angle that you're holding your brush, so that's why I keep moving around. So basically what I'm doing is I'm highlighting where so if you can imagine a marionette doll, they have balls in the joints. So this will be the ball and this is the bit of arm that's connecting the two. I'm putting the highlight in, so when I put the depth in, I've already got the highlight so that I can have that hard edge giving my line a little bit more depth. You could do it the other way. I just prefer to do all my highlight first. And that way when I put in the depth, I get a really nice clean edge because that's the last thing that I do. So I'm just putting a little highlight at the neck joint. I mean, most likely the costume will hide this, but better to be safe than sorry. So I'm just lightening the hands so that if there's anything that we do, it just matches in with the rest of the doll colorings. And I'm just using straight white on that because I don't mind if some of the pink shows through. I'm not color blocking anything out. I'm just lightening what's there. I'm going back in with my yellow just to lighten up Michaela's back. You'll know when it's mixed because they have little balls in them. And if the ball isn't shaking around inside, you know that there's still formula down the bottom. There we go. You can hear that ball finally moving around. Can you hear that? Probably not. Just doing in between all the fingers too. This one here, I'm only putting one squirt of final seal in because I want it to be a little bit more opaque. Just be careful when it is more opaque, sometimes your brush can splatter. That's why I have this little powder brush to just alleviate any of those issues. And you can see how dramatically we've changed her skin tone to quite dramatically lighten it. Okay, so now that I've gotten to this stage with the body, I'm going to move up onto the face. Just run a bit of alcohol through my gun, just because I've been using final seal in it. I just want to give it a really good flush out, because by the time I get back to it, it could have stuff stuck in there. So I'm going to start with the eyes first. I'm just popping on a really light base. And I just use a powder puff there to balance on so that I'm not popping my fingers all over Michaela's face, although so I'm just going to finish that off with a powder. I'm just using a white, and this just sets that a little bit so that whatever I'm putting on top will blend easier. It won't stick. But just lightening up that eyelid, it means that I'll get a truer colour with the eyeshadow that I'm using. See, this is one of the like HD powders. This isn't this is like the Bella foundations, so it's really light. It's not an eyeshadow colour per se, which is why I like to use it. It'll just set that base. I'm actually going to use some of the Creme blush on the eyelid, and then I'll set that off with a powder. I'm kind of using, well, not I'm kind of, I am using contrasting colours. So I'm using blue and orange together because they're contrasting, they both make each other stand out. what I love about, you know, they say don't put creams on top of powders, but because that Bella powder is so fine, it's okay to do that. It doesn't make this cream go on any worse. I don't know, I think maybe, I don't know if it's something about the formula because it's a blush, but it seems to sit okay on top of these powders. As you can see, it's not going cakey or anything, because I'll then seal this with a different colour. I'm going to use this beautiful navy blue. It's sort of like a powder blue, this colour. I love it. So I'm going to use this in the socket. I just tap the colour in. I mean, these are so amazing because they're just so intense, the colours, as you can see. Like, I tapped so much off my brush then, and see how intense that is? Now, what I want to make sure that I do is, you know, with my eye shape, I want to round it off. You know, so it's a bit of an homage to the 20s. You know, I'm sort of was modelling this off very similar to the makeups that we were doing on the Great Gatsby. So, you know, Leslie Vanderwalt, the department head, had such amazing comprehensive research material, great direction, and you know, it was all about using the smokiness and then having just a metallic right in the middle to just bring that pop of colour. And, you know, we were using silvers, coppers, golds, paired with your blues and greens and those types of colours. And I'm just layering, so, you know, I start with this navy colour and then I'll go in with a brighter blue. What I love about the Ben Nye colours is that you can layer them for extra depth. So with this blue, I sort of end up putting 3 blues on, because I'll go in with this, then I go in with my bright blue, and then I finish it off with the Pearl Sheen. And even though that's 3 layers of powder, they still doesn't go cakey. It just blends really nicely. I always find the hardest things with these sorts of makeups is to go against the grain of doing the cat eye, because it's so, you know, now. And that's so what, you know, that's what I grew up with, and that's what's really current. Everybody wants that extended eye, and this is all about making it round and down. And then I just go in with a clean brush and make sure I blend out any of those little edges. Then I'm going to go in and add, see how beautiful this colour is? Love this colour. It's amazing. It's celestial blue. The reason why I don't go straight in with this is because I like to have that, this is very bright, whereas the navy blue just dulls it a little bit, but you still have the intensity of this colour. And see how I just work that in the centre of the colour rather than taking it all the way to the edges. You can see the difference in the depth. And I'm using the blue Pearl Sheen. And this just adds a little bit of reflect. Go back in with my clean brush. Just going to add a little bit of this copper, and I'm using the dynamic Pearl Sheen for this because it's got this beautiful orangey colour. I'm just tapping that in the centre. That will just make that pop. And then I'm just going to brush away some of that excess. I'm going to go back in with this, the normal Pearl Sheen palette, and go in with the white colour, and I'm just popping that in the very centre here, just opening that inner corner up. And that's okay that some of it goes down underneath because I'll use that. the next bit I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with my cake liner and I'm going to use Final Seal. So I do a quick spray of that and just work the brush into it until I get a really nice paste, as you can see. So I'm just going right on the lash line there. I don't want to make this line too big because I don't want to lose all of the copper when she opens. And I also want to accentuate the roundness of the eyes. And I'll get Michaela to just look down and to your left. I do this when I do the inner corner because it helps stretch out the eyelid. And it means that I can get a really fine line, and I just dab that in there. And now look straight and see how fine that line is when I do that. See the difference in the eye shape. This one looks like it goes more up and down, and this one still looks a bit more almond. It's a really fine line with getting this mix right, because you don't want the Final Seal and the cake liner to be too watery because then it's too translucent, and you don't want it to be too dry because then it gets really catchy. I'm going to smudge that out a little bit. Now this won't smudge, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is just put a soft shadow. You can use a cream if you want to smudge the cream liner, but I just like to have that set because it's really, really, really black. So I'm just going in with a black pressed eyeshadow now. And just close for me. And I'm just pressing that in to the corner there. Okay, so I'm just using the eyeliner pencil in black. Same thing, just using the pad, and I just gently push and see how that just tilts the waterline towards me.
What about, did you buy another one?
Just get right in there. Michaela's a pro at this. Perfect. Underneath, because I want it to be that little bit deeper, I'm actually going to start the blend off. Just look up for me with a black, just to smudge out that line. Now, you'll notice I'm doing a little bit of a break in the middle here because I want to put a lighter colour in. Then I'm going to go in with my bright blue. I'm going straight over the top with the bright colour. And that, having the black as a base under that, it intensifies it. Rather than blue on blue, it's black with the blue. So then I'm just going in with a little bit of this light colour. This is a bit of a cream, and I'm just using that to blend out that little spot. Just to make it slightly more interesting, I'm just going to use this grey, and I'm just going to really pull this down. And the grey sort of neutralises any pink that's there as well, which is quite nice. Then I'm going to go in with a little bit, this is the Dynamic palette again, and I'm going in with this aqua turquoisey colour. And I'm just going to press that into the outer edge. I'm just not crossing that line. So I've just gone in with this nice aqua colour. You can see it right there. Just making sure I get rid of that on that little, you know, because these will be like, if you think like the clown, little sort of almost like little teardrops almost. In my liquid diamonds, my favourite product, Ultra Bright. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in with a flat white because I've done everything really, really shiny. And now on the very top, I just want this to be nice and flat underneath the brow. So I'm going back in with that foundation powder, the Bella powder. You know, and it's more like a no color powder, so it'll just take that back. So I'll use my Hydro Cleanse because this is like a oil free, so it won't affect anything that I'm going to put on top of it. You know, it's not very much. I mean, you know, considering how heavy that eye is, and that's what I also love about the Ben Nye, is there's very minimal droppage, and for someone who just is like that with the brush, which is me, you know, it really helps. Now, I could airbrush the face. I'm not going to because, you know, I wanted to get the eye done first, just in case there was any droppage, as a little bit of safety net for myself. So I'm going to use the creams on the face because I don't want to get any overspray on the eye makeup, because then the eye makeup will look dull. So if you're going to airbrush the face first. You know, now I can just go in with my creams and my bases. So same type of scenario where I'm going to go in and pale her down. Again, I'm going in with the lightest color, and I'm using more of a yellow because Michaela's skin tone is more yellow than pink. So I want to keep with that tone. And I'm just going into the corners here, just so I get right in there, in case I want to shorten that lip line, which I haven't decided yet. I'll decide when I get to it. Now I'm going to start doing a little bit of my shading. So I'm going to use these powders because they're nice and subtle. And not only will they set the foundation, but see how nice and subtle that is? You know, for me, the key with highlight and shade is always subtlety. And that's what I'm trying to achieve here, and that's why I'm using these really nice, gorgeous Bella powders. See how we've just very subtly shaped the nose there? That little marionette mouth, so just go like that. And see how that has still got that, you know, that still got that line there, but it's all very subtle. Just gonna pop back onto my foundation. So what I'm going to do first is I'm actually going to go in with my blush color. Just smile for me, because I really want to hit those apples, because if Michaela was a doll, this is where that line will be. And what this does is that helps me pop the cheek in the right place for her face structure. Now that I know where her cheeks sit, I can then go in back in with my powder, and I'll just start my line. And see how I'll have the hard edge on this side, so it gives the illusion of that cheek really popping out. And I'm just adding a little bit of low light under this nose here, and that just gives the top lip so much more depth. So it looks like it protrudes out a bit further. Just blend that away. And see how with that line there, she has a permanent smile now. Like a little doll. And because I went in with that light color, you can see having that highlight on that edge, it gives it that extra dimension that it needs to make it, I mean, she is a three-dimensional shape, but it makes it look more three-dimensional. What I also love about using the cream brush is you see how it's nice and shiny, so it doesn't look super flat. So now what I'm going to do is add a little bit more highlight in a couple of areas using my, this is just your Effects Cream White. And see how that just very subtly makes the chin just stand out that little bit further above my brow. And you'll see why I'm doing that soon. I'm going to use some of that just in this little spot here. You might be able to sort of see that come together. That's the top of a point, that's the bottom of a point. You can see I sort of did it smudgy and then I do it a little bit thicker with a smaller brush, and see how that adds a little bit of texture to those 2 points. There's just one spot I feel like it's losing some of the highlight. It's just in here. That's better. And that just cleans up, see how that's just cleaned up that edge a little bit? I'm gonna go back down to the body. And I'm gonna just come in and mark these out. So I'm going in with my powders first. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to make sure that I'm keeping a harder edge on here. So these are my softer edges in this little bit, because this is the ball joint. So the ball joint sits inside these outer joints. So that's why the shading comes into the ball joint. And see how, because I already put my highlight in, it instantly creates that little bit of depth.
Yeah. I use it on nail actors a lot.
What's nice about these airbrush colours is that, everything sits really nicely on top. Again, I'm just making sure I've got the harder edge on the arm joint, not the ball joint, which is this little elbow piece. I mean, alternatively, you could do this with a cream. And what I will be doing is I'll be going in and reaffirming that hard edge with something a little bit more opaque than a powder. And so I just do a little bit at a time, and I just do one side, the other side, one side, the other side. That way I can make sure that I even everything out. So I'm going to do that by using some of my contour palette. So I get a nice straight edge. And I'm only doing this on the bits that have joins. So on the cheeks, that soft contour is fine. And see how that adds that little bit of depth onto the outer edge? And I just blend my powder line up into that. And that's just given it that little bit of definition that I need. When you do this, you've got to be really careful that you're only smudging one side, that you're not going over, because you want this line to be really crisp on one edge. See how much depth that has once you put the really hard line in? So once I've reinforced all of those really crisp edges, what I'll do is I'm going to go back in with a highlight and just blend off inside that ball joint. And I'm just making sure I'm staying on the inside of this ball joint. I'll have to come back in and tidy up here with some of my fingerprints. And I'm just using the contour palette, and I'm going in with the really lightest highlight. So now that we've done that, I'm just going to go back in with my porcelain airbrush colour and just do some final little touch-ups. I'm going to pop a little bit of this on the face, just under the eye area. So I'm going to get a little cotton pad, just close for me. I'm going to pop that there. And see how that just smooths that area out? See the difference? I'm nearly done. I just have to put mascara, lashes, lips, a bit of an over thing, and then we're good. Just going to use some clear mascara. Now I'm just painting that through her brow. The clear mascara is good because it will just put a bit of a coating on them, and see how it just helps alleviate some of that colour that is stuck to the brows. Okay, so I'm going to let that set a little bit, and then I'm going to go in with my pencil. I'm going to just go nice and dark with the lashes. Now, if I just lift the lid a little bit using my finger underneath the brow, that just helps me get underneath without getting any product on her cheek. See that? How it just lifts it up for me. So I'm just going in with a taut pencil. Oh, I'm just moving the brow around a bit. Just painting some of that, moving some of that colour around with a brush, making sure they're even. Now for my favourite product, Ultra Bright. So just to make sure that I've got enough cream for it to adhere to, I'm just going to go back in and reinforce my little bits of white here. And I just press that into the white cream. And because I use the different texture, it just adheres differently in the bits that have a bit more cream. You know, and some of that white comes through, which is quite nice. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this pencil and just brush some of that, just paint over that little bit of eyebrow so that it doesn't, just gets rid of the product from the eyebrow and just colours in any product that is there. Okay, before I put lashes on, because I want lashes to be last because I don't want to be putting powder with lashes because I like them to be really dark. I'm going to do a little bit of a final brush over with this Ben Nye Luxury powder. It's a little bit of a shimmer. And I'm just using this beautiful fan brush because it doesn't pop too much of the product on. And it just gives this beautiful luminescence. Now you could airbrush this shimmer on. They do have a beautiful pearl shimmer. The reason why I haven't done this is because I don't want to blur any of those crisp lines, and with a powder you're going to have less of a chance of blurring those lines. What we will have to do is we'll have to go underneath the arms with our brown line, but I'll do that very last because I don't want it to smudge because I am using a cream. And because I've got the fan brush, I can just pat it on. Just close for me. So I'm basically using this to almost set all of the makeup as well. And I tend to put more on the highlight areas, like up here. And on the chin here. And you can see where I'll have to connect. So because this is going underneath the arm, instead of using a cream for that harder edge, I'm going to use a pancake aqua colour. This is an aqua colour, and I'll pop it with a little bit of final seal. You know, it is quite hard to match this colour, so I'll just be mixing two. And see, that's sort of, you know, that's quite a similar colour. So I'm using the brown, black and the warm brown together. Just pop a little bit of final seal into a cup. And then I just use the cream to just make sure where this meets up. It helps it blend, so I can use a little bit of final seal on a clean brush and just fade that edge away a little bit. And then go back in with this warm brown. And then we've got our little edge, our hard edge that's not going to smudge underneath the armpit, because, you know, she might not necessarily be like this, but you might see it a little bit once she's got her arms up. So you want it to look cohesive. So I'm just using, it's called Vino, a lip liner, because I don't want to smudge any of this. And I'm going to just use a pad to make sure. So I'm just accentuating that Cupid's bow a little bit. So I did a darker liner, but I'm going to go in with a brighter lip colour. So it'll still be on the same tone. So this is the California Sunset Lip Palette. So it was Vino liner with mulberry over the top. And I didn't take the liner all the way to the edge of it, like the inside of the lip. That way it just means that the inside can be that little bit lighter. See how nice and shiny that is? And then what I'm going to do is just with this tiny bit of Ultra Bright, I'm going to just hit that up in the very center in the Cupid's bow. So now she's got that little bit of highlight in the Cupid's bow. Now, because it's just looking a bit like a triangle at the moment, just going to pop back in there and just blend it a little bit. That's better. So it doesn't just look like it's gone straight on. And then getting rid of that line there. So see why I didn't do lashes? You know, you can see some of the powder on the lashes. So what I'll go and do, so I'm going to put another coat of mascara, just look down for me, and we'll pop our lashes on. I sort of place the lash in the middle, and then I just wiggle it to either side and just pop it in where I feel like it needs to go. Because it is a doll makeup, I've gone with your traditional full thick doll lashes. And we're going to be putting a bottom lash on today as well. And that's why I'm using clear glue. Before I go on with this bottom lash, I'm just going to go in, because, you know, it's been sitting there for a while now, I'm just going to reinforce the inner rim line, you know, the waterline liner. So I'm going back in with my blue. So we're going to get Michaela changed into her outfit, get her hair finished off, and you can see the final look. We'll do any finishing touches then.